the hardest parts about leaving a large company to do this is it just feels so immensely risky.
Mm.
What helped me was, as a big tech employee, I feel like I was operating on founder mode to the, probably detriment of my team. I would go out and do things and work on the weekends and work at nights because I wanted to accomplish things that were just not in the roadmap, because I cared so deeply about our customers and I cared so deeply about the experience of the people working next to me.
Today on the Lobster Talks, I'm speaking with Hunter Leath from Aril, a company turning your S3 bucket into a local disk that's 30 times faster and never runs out of space. Isn't that crazy? Best thing, it's used today by researchers to run models and transfer AI data without having to wait for anything to load. Hunter, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Gabriel.
All right, let's get started. Finally, we made this intro out of the way after 7 tries. That's what it is. Let's just briefly start by introducing yourself and introducing the company.
Sure. So I'm Hunter. I'm the founder of Aril. Aril, like Gabriel said, takes S3 buckets and transforms them into a local disk in the cloud that never runs out of capacity, is something you can share across instances, and is 90% cheaper than many of the storage technologies today.
It's a dream.
It's a dream, yeah.
What's the origin story? When did you, I think to remember you worked, I believe, at Netflix, and you were just doing this day in and day out, transferring data into the bucket, taking it out to run things and back and forth. And you're like, there's got to be a better way. Is that it?
That's right. So I never expected, to be working in storage technology. I went out of college and I worked for AWS for actually 8 years. And I worked on a core storage product there called the Elastic File System. I did engineering there for 5 years, and I did product there for 3 years. And it was really interesting to hear how customers thought about using their storage. We were continuously getting a common set of requests from customers. They were requesting the product be faster. They were requesting that it was cheaper. And we found ourselves in this super weird position where we were ultimately competing with S3 internally.
Yeah.
So I went to Netflix to try to get away from cloud storage and go into the movies. That did not work. I ended up on their cloud storage team. And it was so interesting to see how all of these developers at Netflix actually used AWS. And it was in those few months that I was there that I realized that there was something critical missing from the storage landscape. Developers were tired of creating servers, trying to guess how much data they were going to store, oftentimes missing it completely and spending a lot on overages, and then having to move data themselves from one place to another, S3 to instances, from one instance to another instance. And I realized that with my expertise, we could build something that was not 10x better, but 100x better for cloud developers.
It's crazy to think. It's going to be very interesting because so many people, when I talk to startups, when I invest in YC startups and then present them to my investors, when we do Q&A, there's almost always this question at some point, oh, what if Amazon comes in and builds the same thing? What if Netflix or Meta or whoever or Google comes in and builds the same thing? Why hasn't AWS built this, in your opinion?
So I think that it is just a matter of ossification of the industry, which is that the storage technology that we use really hasn't changed since the 70s. There are block storage companies, which are effectively like hard drives. There's object storage, which is like Amazon S3. And then there's file storage, which is like EFS or NetApp. And we're trying to build something that kind of blends all of these things together. So if you have a company that's been around for a long period of time, it's hard for them to cross organizational lines like that. And because our product is so much cheaper than the existing options, there's not a lot of incentive for the clouds to go out and build something that's going to cut down, billions of dollars potentially of revenue for them.
Yeah, they'd be shooting themselves in the foot.
That's right.
It's so interesting because if you remove the context from everything you said, just take your sentence, it can be applied to any, remove everything cloud AWS. There's just what you said. The old ones, they're set in their ways. They don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. is just working as it is. They're printing billions of dollars of revenue. Why would they change? That's maybe I'm going to cut this and send it to everyone who's asking me, what if Google does this? Well, this is so. Thank you for that. So it's very interesting as well because it's the combination of your experience at AWS plus then seeing the sort of real day-to-day use case at Netflix, and then you're thinking, okay, there's got to be a better way. Did you immediately realize it could be that much cheaper, or did you sort of explore to only sort of land on it later?
Well, I think that I had really spent these 10 years thinking deeply about this problem, working with customers, thinking about architecture, thinking about the optimal ways to store and use data. And so when I was able to be in a place where I was on the customer side instead of the seller side, it was pretty clear to me which set of trade-offs we had to pick in order to get an experience that would be what most of these applications wanted and was so much cheaper.
All right, that's crazy. Did you immediately go to Netflix about it? Be like, hey, I can solve your problem?
Yeah, I mean, I was very interested in building something in this space. I think that what made Netflix an interesting company to work for, and I would certainly recommend it to anyone who is interested in solving deep technical problems, is that they're not a cloud. And so Netflix gets its revenue from content. They're very interested in how can we produce the best content as quickly as possible for the lowest cost. They're not so interested in going out and building cloud services which require tens of people to operate and around the clock support.
Yeah, know your lane and what's not core to you, just outsource it to someone else, to AWS.
That's right.
Okay, before I forget, because I always forget, if you're enjoying this show, please consider subscribing to the channel. On YouTube, you can actually watch us. You can turn on the notification bell. If you're on your favorite podcast app, leave us a 5-star review. It doesn't hurt. It really helps. I also have a solo channel where I don't have guests. It's just me. I know it's less interesting. The guests are more interesting, but you can type my name in the YouTube search bar, Gabriel Cherison, and find my solo content on VC and behind the scenes of YC. Thank you very much. Now back to the show. Okay, you start this famously, I want to say, as a solo founder. I want to also, this is also the kind of questions I want to ask you is, how do you go about thinking about this? Many people watching are potentially solo founder, and what I mean by potentially is they have an idea, they might want to run with it, they don't know if they should look for a co-founder or not. How did you think about all that?
Well, it was really interesting because we got into YC, as I think many people do, very unexpectedly. So it was a matter of timing where I was ready with my idea when Gary announced this new fall batch. I applied, and when I got in, I had 2 weeks to move to SF.
Wow.
And Nicholas, my partner, recommended strongly that I get a co-founder, and I would, from my vantage point, also recommend strongly that anyone get a co-founder. But with 2 weeks to move to SF, it was very difficult for many of the people that I was interested in to kind of pack up their lives and move. I'm not the usual YC demographic because I'm 30, I have a family, I have children. So many of the people that I would want to do this with are in a similar position, and we're buying homes, for example, and not in the position to just jump off of their big tech job and start a startup.
That's super interesting because, yes, you're not the typical YC founder. Typical YC founder is 23 or, even 19, dropping out of college or something. Easy for them to just pack up and move. What's the... so I have a family. I've moved to SF as well with the family for YC, not as a founder, but as an investor. So I know exactly what you're talking about and how tough it is. But tell me how you go about and do that. What's the discussions? I mean, I don't want you to, go about your personal life, but just how can you actually do that? Because there's so many, because you did it. I did it. So many people say, oh, YC is not for me. I'm married. That's it. I have a mortgage. Did you have a house or mortgage? How did it happen internally? Whatever you can share.
Yeah, I went into YC believing that I would decide as time went on I thought that maybe SF wasn't required. We're kind of in this post-COVID transitional period to some extent still, where maybe it didn't make sense to be in person in SF. But I think that what YC does a really good job of is expanding your definition of success and showing you just how massive these things can become. And when you're put in this position where you see what a company can be, and the YC partners tell you that you can easily double your chances of success by just being in person, and from the random interactions that come from that, it made it obvious that we had to be here because it was a simple thing that we can do. It wasn't easy logistically to get everyone here, but I absolutely think it's worth it. Because even if, we have customers who aren't based in San Francisco, what's great about this place is that everyone travels here. And so just by being here, I'm able to meet my local companies, but also people who are based in Paris, who are based in Germany, because quarterly, here they are.
That's interesting. That's what I used to do. I used to, go back and forth and always come here. Very cool. So a couple things I'm picking up from what you're saying, again, to people out there who are, and I know so many, I have this conversation so often, like, oh, I want to move here, but I can't because this and this and that. First, you came sort of as a 3-month vacation. Start slowly and see if you like it. I guess you liked it if you're still here. Don't just jump right away. But of course, being here is, YC had the stats, the numbers that compared to New York, and that's not even compared to Europe or whatever. New York is pretty cool, like a pretty busy city with lots of people and lots of things happening. But still, compared to New York, being in SF doubles your chances of building a unicorn. That's just crazy. Building a unicorn is hard enough, but doubling your chances is pretty cool. Okay, thank you for that. I want to go back to something you said on YC helping you see bigger. The first thing that came to mind was, they bring all of those people in front of you, Brian Chesky, Patrick Collison, so founders of Airbnb, Stripe, Sam Altman comes quite often. So you see those people, they're real humans, they're there in front of you, you see it's possible. I'm guessing that's one of the aspects of it. What would you say were the elements that made you see bigger?
Yeah, I do think that what you mentioned is a big component of it. I've never been in rooms with people who have founded enormous companies and are massively successful. I specifically remember at the very end of the batch, we were having a party, and some of the partners were talking about a mutual friend, and they were asking, is this person like a single-digit billionaire or a double-digit billionaire? And I remember internally feeling like it was so different to be in this environment where all of these people have accomplished such amazing things. I think that realizing that it is true that the world is created by people who are no different than you and I, and just go out and have the willpower to see it through is an enormous lesson that I was able to gain.
And it's so inspiring hearing you say this, because it's also what you get from coming here. When you're somewhere else, you're like, oh, those guys in San Francisco, I don't know who they are. It's not real. And then you come here and you're like, these are people just like me. They're just, they're regular humans. Okay, very cool. So walk me through the journey. You apply to YC, you get in almost immediately. At that point, are you still working at Netflix? How long have you been working on it? What happens in those first few weeks, few months?
Well, we were actually on vacation when I applied to YC. One of the last vacations I took.
As you should, exactly.
So I think that was fortunate. And I was working at Netflix at that time. I got accepted into YC, and we had about 3 weeks to move to San Francisco. So I had to very quickly call my boss and tell him that I would have to leave, and gave my notice. And it was extremely uncomfortable at first because I've never been also in a situation where I wasn't employed by a large company. And so I felt very unmoored for probably a month before I started to understand how it felt to be a founder and do your own thing. We got to SF. We were in Dogpatch, the YC neighborhood. And it was just a magical thing coming from a place like Atlanta to be able to walk down the street and see ads on the bus stops for things like Porter and Central and these companies that I'm now familiar with, being a part of the community, who were advertising to us because it was such a localized kind of hyper successful part of the city.
I always those ads always amaze me because SF, like, there's a lot of people in SF who are not in tech. There's nurses and bakers and butchers and people at Whole Foods do the cash register stuff like that. And I wonder what they think of those. Like, they probably don't understand anything on those ads. But it's so interesting. It's the only place. I mean, if you go to London, if you go to Paris, if you go to New York, you don't have those ads. But in SF, you have ads for Vercel everywhere. And you have ads for, I don't know, all of those tech geeky products. And that's so cool. I want to, again, sort of bounce, I'm just hearing you and seeing where I want to take this. Something very interesting that I found as well is people coming from larger companies building a startup. I've had mixed feelings because I've seen mixed results. So some of them do really well. I have one entrepreneur that I invested into. She worked at Netflix and Pinterest, and now she's just killing it, and that's awesome. But I also think those big companies, if you work for too long, maybe that's because you didn't work there for 25 years, but I think if you work there for too long, I think it almost distorts you or something and makes it so much harder for you to be a founder. And that's sort of what you alluded to. You said the first month, I really didn't know how to do things on my own. Did you feel that? How did you fix it? Do you agree that some people, if they work for too long in those big companies, that's so many questions, I'm sorry, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that something I learned is that working at a startup and founding a startup is just so different from working in big tech.
Yeah.
And so I think you see mixed results because it's so dependent on the person and why they liked working in big tech. What I like about our business is that it is so hyper specific to this data problem that I believe you could only see by being in the industry for so long and working on the kinds of products that I did. But if I had come out of Amazon and Netflix and I wanted to found, Uber or an operational heavy company, a Central, I think I would struggle with that because the skills that you would need would just be so different.
It's so interesting. That's sort of the issue that I see is you're used to having a team behind you that can just do things for you. And then when you're on your own, but it seems sort of stupid when I say it, but it's true. Like, it takes some time to realize if you don't do stuff, it's not going to happen for you. Like, you have to do everything. And so what happened during this month that made you really switch to, okay, now I'm in founder mode, or however we want to call it, and I can really do things myself? I'm guessing YC helped as well, probably.
Yeah, I would not have done this had I not gotten into YC. I think that one of the hardest parts about leaving a large company to do this is it just feels so immensely risky. And so having the like social capita or the social affirmation from something like YC with the brand helped me believe in me and build the company to where we are now. But I think that what helped me was, as a big tech employee, I feel like I was operating on founder mode to the probably detriment of my team. I would go out and do things and work on the weekends and work at nights because I wanted to accomplish things that were just not in the roadmap, because I cared so deeply about our customers and I cared so deeply about the experience of the people working next to me.
So you're already sort of a founder, and it was probably a nightmare for them, but you had it in you for sure. You had it in you. Okay, very cool. So yeah, talk about where you are now. You said where you're now. It's been less than a year. If I'm not, it's going to be almost a year.
Yeah.
What happened since? I know it's a lot. So congrats.
No, it's been a tremendous experience. Yeah. I think we spent YC basically building a POC of this and then getting it in the hands of a small number of customers who were interested in it at that point. And we had a tremendous Hacker News launch last year, which I think made the end of batch a great experience for us. And then we worked with these customers and basically got universal feedback that the product wasn't fast enough.
Mm.
So we then took time over the first part of this year to go heads down and rebuild the product from the ground up in order to make it as good as we knew it could be. Um, and we're now working with customers who are doing things like satellite image processing. Some of the largest companies in the world are interested in using us for ML infrastructure, serverless notebooks, AI coding sandboxes, all of this kind of next generation AI infrastructure is going to be so data dependent that we are excited to be a part of it. And
Wow.
today we're actually launching our next generation protocol to the public, and super excited to see how that goes.
So that's whenever this goes live, it's like a few weeks back that you're launching, but it's actually happening today. That's really cool.
Yes.
Congrats. It's so exciting. Okay. That ties into a question I wanted to ask you maybe later, but let's dive in now. What's the go to market for a product like this? Because it is, I guess, at the same time a very it's how would you call it? It's like a better mousetrap that when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, it's better than what I have. But if you don't know it exists, you're not necessarily looking for it. I'm guessing, maybe I'm wrong. So tell me how you try and solve this in your customer's mind so that they just know you exist and want to switch.
Yeah, it's such an interesting problem, and I found the past year of being immersed in startups so intriguing because we're so different than many of the startups out there, which is that investors want to see an ICP who has a name and a town and a job title. And we are so broad that I would tell investors, we're targeting AWS customers. And they're like, well,
That's everyone.
that's everyone.
Yeah.
What we found, though, is that basically we have two levers for growth around GTM. One is that many of these companies are starting projects where they're not quite sure how to deal with the data infrastructure. And we have to catch people at that moment where they are beginning to evaluate options so that we can be evaluated alongside them. And YC was tremendously helpful in this by giving us a platform and giving us visibility so that these companies could find us. And then what we do is we take these projects that we're working on with customers and developers, and we verticalize them and turn them into use cases. So, for example, this satellite image processing company uses a standard set of software, has a standard set of performance requirements that we're able to then take and outbound to the rest of the satellite image processing community to show them the benefits that they can have by moving to us. But that first person almost has to be inbound because they have to be at the moment of building something new.
Wow. And that's not easy because there's already getting customers. If they have the need anytime, it's not that easy. But now you got to catch them exactly at the right time. So that's why I'm guessing you go with the launches and the Hacker News and the YC. But have you found that hard to replicate over time? So you had a launch last year and now you're having one now. In the meantime, is it harder to get customers, or have you found other ways of getting to them exactly at the right time?
No, I mean, I've been surprised by this. We have been overwhelmed with demand for the product over the past year.
Brilliant.
Yes, I know it's an ideal place to be. So we actually can't satisfy all of the people who are coming in the door that want to use us.
So we'll put in the show notes, like, don't reach out.
That's right.
He's at
Whatever
capacity.
you do.
Just don't reach out. No, okay, sorry. No, that's awesome. That's a great problem. And so have you figured out where it comes from? It's just there's such a big need?
Yes, I think that there is, everyone is trying to build AI native things today, whether it's software, infrastructure, analysis. And because of this, all of these companies are in the process of creating new applications. And these applications are unlike anything they've done before. So we're finding it very effective to be at that moment for a lot of the industry.
Such a good place to be. The dream. That's why we have those important conversations here. That's why you should subscribe to the... No, I've said that already. Okay. You're talking about investors. You're building sort of a infra product as a solo founder. How was your fundraising journey at YC?
We probably had one of the easier experiences coming out of YC. And I think that I've spent a lot of time reflecting on why that is. And I believe it's because investors are really looking to invest in a story more than anything. And being able to tell a story where I've been in the industry for so long, to have this deep expertise, to have a Hacker News launch that was successful at the end of the batch to show the traction, and then have the ability to sign a few contracts with key customers during the batch was a good story to tell investors at that point.
It's the perfect story. You're the expert. You launch it. It's successful. You have customers. It's interesting. I don't think that's it. I don't think that's enough, because that describes, well, it's interesting. I was going to say that describes 90% of YC companies, and I was going to say not all of them fundraise everything that they want, but my data is not correct. Actually, most of them do. It's just when I see them at demo day, I have a distinction between the ones that are already done with their fundraise, as many of them want to be, and the ones that are not. But in the following weeks, they usually end up closing. So that's probably we're saying the same thing. Interestingly, I want to go back to AWS, your sort of best friend, quote unquote, or frenemy. I don't know how we should say, because you have so much demand, because you said everyone's building new use cases with AI, and everyone is. There's probably not a single company now that's not building something in the AI space, and so that needs your solution. Aren't they at risk here? Like, aren't they bleeding out customers? And if yes, does it warrant a response from them?
No, I think, and I would certainly categorize AWS as friends, and most of my friends are still at AWS, and I of course have tremendous respect for the work they do. I think it's a great place, but I think the beauty of what AWS has built is that it does not matter for them whether people use our service or don't use our service.
Easy.
We're here to serve customers in AWS and potentially unlock AWS for another segment of customers that they would not be able to capture because of these complex organizational dynamics. So maybe over time, you see a shift in the hyperscalers from their high margin products like an RDS or an EBS to people like Neon or us, pushing that data into places like S3. But that's only going to grow the pie for the hyperscalers.
It's, again, it shows the sort of, it never is a zero-sum game. It's just everything is accretive to one another, and it just keeps growing on top of each other. Isn't there some scenarios where you just take customers away from them?
Well, we're not running our own data centers.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, you have to run on top of them then.
So our expertise is not in managing hardware.
No.
Of course, I can't predict what will happen over the next 10 years, but we run on top of AWS, we run on top of GCP, all of the hyperscalers. We see these GPU clouds coming out now where they bought a data center and they fill it full of H100s that we're interested in partnering with and we're working with. And maybe there is some play in between the hyperscalers and the GPU clouds.
Yeah.
But as a layer that runs on top of them, all of them, we are not in direct competition with someone like AWS.
That's interesting. Well, okay. I don't know if I would agree, because you're still sort of taking, even if it still runs on AWS, you're still taking money out of their pocket, sort of.
Well, it's like a different level of competition.
Yeah.
So we're not taking customers away from AWS.
Yeah.
But we may be competing with managed services that they offer.
Exactly. Well, anyway, that brought an idea to that I wanted to ask you. Do you think for those GPU farms, those H100s that are there, you could build something similar where you would be able to reduce the price by 90%?
Oh,
because that'd be a killer app. Everyone wants to pay less on inference and compute.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're partnering with them to make this a reality.
Wow. Maybe that's the killer. Like, I mean, the existing is already a killer one, but if people could pay 90% less on those GPUs, like, that's crazy.
Yeah. And to be clear, this is on their storage spend, not necessarily their GPU spend. But I think that we we want to make a future happen where we're available wherever our customers are, whether they're GPU clouds, CPU clouds, container clouds, because we think the experience is so much better.
Yeah.
We were speaking with a GPU cloud recently who told us a lot of these companies are buying products like Vast or Pure Storage, or kind of the last generation of storage products. And while that works well for the large data sets that the companies need to train on, they have problems because the developers and the researchers are just trying to like pip install packages on these storage systems, and they're not configured for that. So we're really excited to offer a solution where we can support both of these things as well, whether it's pre-training to running Docker.
Wow, very cool. So exciting. So
Thank
exciting. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I get super excited about everything you can, you have, like all the optionality, all the road you have in front of you. I was checking my notes, and probably should have maybe asked you before. It doesn't matter. I'm having an amazing conversation. Can we go a little bit into the tech part of it? And could you just explain how you're able to make it 30 times faster and 90% cheaper at the same time?
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you look at the traditional architecture that we see, people will use a product like EBS or Hyperdisk for everything, which is a networked block device. Or they're going to use something like S3 for everything, and they're going to transfer it over. And what we've done is we've built a middle layer of boxes that have direct attached high-speed NVMe solid-state disks on them. And that middle layer does the translation for our customers. So they get a disk that they can run Linux on, is as compatible as running straight Linux, and they can access the data that's already in S3. But as a result, our storage technology, those solid state disks, are 30x faster than bringing data down from S3 yourself if it's hot. And then if you just use EBS, because of the problems that you have with guessing how much capacity you have or need, end up over provisioning, and because you may have to do the offloading yourself, we can offer an experience that's up to 90% cheaper by just intelligently picking where your data should live, if it's hot and in these solid state disks, or if it's cold and it should just be an S3.
Wow. Okay. It's almost an orchestration layer that sorts, stores. It's interesting. I'm listening, and I'm all the way thinking, how easy is it for AWS to replicate? But that's not really their point anyway. And so it led me to the next question is sort of the logical outcome for you at some point in the distant future to be acquired by them? The question maybe is, can you be acquired by anyone else?
Well, I think that it's an interesting question.
Thank you. I'll try my best.
I think regardless of whether or not Amazon were to come out with technology like this, as we talked about the reasons why I think it's unlikely, but if they did, one of the interesting differences between us and them is that we operate at a very different level, being a startup.
Yeah.
And so we can do things that traditional storage vendors would not, which would basically be accepting bytes and then giving you the bytes back when you ask for them. We want to go farther than that, and we want to start to help customers with the compute, with the actual data transformation. You can imagine there are applications now which take a bunch of PDF documents and chunk them up and put them into a vector database, for example. There's not really any reason why we force the developers to build that kind of integration, as opposed to just allowing the storage layer to do it for them. If you drop a PDF in a folder, our software can take care of that for you. And so by creating this universal data layer where we're pulling things in from all over the web, where we're allowing you to use our compute, we think that we ultimately get to a more flexible product than AWS would offer. And because the market for storage is enormous, it's $100, $200 billion a year and growing rapidly, these trade-offs matter tremendously to people. And there's always enough revenue in the market for everyone.
Okay. And so
the acquisition question.
if you Yeah, that's
Well, I think that every startup's goal is to IPO, right?
okay.
So I think that if you look at the landscape of data companies, there is absolutely precedent for companies that are not part of the hyperscaler to grow large enough
Yeah,
to IPO.
of
If you look
course.
at a Databricks or a
Yeah.
Snowflake,
Yeah.
you could have asked similar questions when they were founded as
Yeah,
to
that's true.
why the clouds would not have built,
Hmm.
the perfect version of this either.
And they did not.
And I think the truth is that it's very hard for the low-level infrastructure companies to build something that integrates well with a bunch of different systems. They're very good at building building blocks, not necessarily solutions. And Databricks and Snowflake win because there are these all-in-one solutions for companies that are trying to analyze their data.
Mm.
So I'm very excited for our opportunity to get extremely large because the need for data storage, the need for data transformation is enormous and can support companies of this size.
Yeah. It's a big TAM.
It is.
We're going after everyone that's using AWS. That's pretty cool. It made me very excited actually about where I mean, I was excited before. That's why you're here. But now I'm like, wow, this is so
This is
great.
how I feel. I wake up every
Yeah.
morning and I'm just like, we have to go faster. There's so much
That's awesome.
there's so much opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, there is. How do you? I wanted to ask something a little different, but how do you? It's something that always comes to mind. I was just at Demo Day. It's a couple days ago, and many YC companies ask me, okay, what should I do after YC? How do I keep this up? What should I know from your experience, etc.? And so I always try to tell them to try to keep the pace of the YC thing. How did you keep this fast moving pace? It's been almost a year. How do you keep building so quickly?
Well, I think it was difficult, and YC warns you of this at the end of the batch.
Yeah.
That there's something called the post-batch slump, I believe is the term,
Yeah.
where after the batch, it's very easy to slow down because you're coming out of this high-speed, high-velocity environment. And this absolutely happened to us,
Oh, wow.
partially because we had to go close things out in Atlanta after the batch. And so what ended up allowing us to increase our velocity again was this move that we had to do back to San Francisco. And immediately after stepping foot in the city, you just see all the things that people are working on. And it's so motivating for you to go faster and be the best one who's here.
It's crazy. Another pep talk for SF.
That's right. I don't want to be like a SF shill, but
we're gonna send this video to Gary. We're gonna like, look,
yeah,
this is what we talk about when you're not here. We talk about SF. No, I mean I agree. The energy here. It's interesting. Everywhere you go, and I don't know if you've felt that or heard that. I sit down at the park on Sunday, or you're just in the street, and there's two friends, grabbing coffee and walking past you. Everything you hear, every time you hear about, oh, the energy in SF is so crazy. So you feel it, but just everyone just keeps repeating it over. Like everyone else feels it as well. The energy here is something special. So that's for sure something that I felt as well. So if you're not here, like we should get, I don't know, SF shares because we're promoting SF so much. Okay, I wanted to go into some sort of predictions on the future of data infra in AI. You're plugged into this. What does it look like in 5 years? Is local, our local storage still a thing? Where does it go, in your opinion, in the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we see is this ephemeralization, let's say, of workloads, where 10, 15 years ago, companies would spin up all of these servers and then have to manage how many servers they had up and make sure that their spend was down. And it's tremendously difficult to do these things. And over time, we see a push more and more towards serverless solutions.
Yep.
And I believe that AI is going to accelerate that. If you look at a company like Replit, what they're doing ultimately is serverless development environments, which make it super easy and low cost for anyone to get started building a tool. If you look at
from your phone.
That's right, from your phone, from anywhere.
Yeah.
If you look at Neon, what they're doing is serverless Postgres databases, which I'm sure you saw their hockey stick graph related to AI agents. And so I think this trend continues where people do not want to manage infrastructure anymore. They want to offload it. And the problem traditionally with these kinds of offerings is that you can't build a serverless product that works as well as a non-serverless product because you have to take knobs away for this to work. And I think where we see ourselves helping with this is being able to take any application which traditionally would require servers and running it in a serverless way because we are a serverless file system or disk that allows you to persist state.
So cool. It's always this thing, like as technology progresses, it almost disappears. It's what, maybe we have smartphones and then at some point we just have glasses and we don't have phones anymore. The technology is just there. And you used to have an actual server in your office, and then it was AWS, so it just disappeared. And then now we're going serverless. Even AWS is disappearing, which again makes me think, aren't they really in trouble? Probably not, because it disappears for the customer. You still need some storage somewhere. But it's I think a very interesting way for people who want to start companies today, a way to think about the world of what can I make disappear? What layer of abstraction? It's the same thing with programming languages. It used to be that you had to, build code on the machine. I'm reading, it's source code from Bill Gates, I believe, like about his childhood. And so he's like, you have to allocate memory and stuff like that. And then you go a layer on top and you just don't care about the memory anymore. The language and the computer does it themselves. And then you go one layer on top. And now it's vibe coding. You don't even code anymore. So for people, again, I know there's many people who want to start businesses, who maybe want to go to YC. I probably would be thinking about it this way if I wanted to start something today. What can I abstract? And AI is very interesting because, like you said, you used to need to have knobs and stuff that you need to configure. You can just give it to AI. Be like, when there's a need for more memory, do that. And when there's no need, shut it down. So it's very, very interesting. Okay, very cool. Again, in sort of our predictions of where the world is going in this data infra space, or could be a more general question. What's a contrarian thought that you hold? What's something that you believe is true or will be true, but most people would disagree with you?
Well, I, of course, don't think that AGI is going to kill us all.
Okay.
Because
good.
I think, if you believe that it's going to kill us all, it's very hard to operate on a day-to-day level. So even if it's true, it's not worth exploring. But, the problem that I have is I have been in this storage game for so long that it is the only thing that I think about. And so when I think about contrarian takes, what I always tell people is I see the file system as the future of how data is going to work. And I think that for the past 15 years, you see a lot of people talk about S3 being the future or object storage being the future. And while many applications are being rewritten to work on top of something like S3, this file system concept is so old and so pervasive that it really is the universal interface to data.
Yeah.
And I think it's been a huge disservice to the industry that we haven't innovated on what a file system does for so long for a lot of the community to believe that they are something that only legacy applications use or obsolete. And so I'm very excited about our opportunity to bring data into the file system from anywhere in the world, provide this ability, like we talked about, for the file system to do the computation for the users, and really capitalize on the file system as the interface to the entire world.
Wow, so exciting! I was gonna end by saying what's coming up, but this is what it is. This is what you're building. So cool, and it's so cool that it's sort of the result of all of those years in the storage world, all of those convictions that you built, and all of that goes into what you're building on a day-to-day. So cool. I love that. Okay, we're sadly out of time, but hopefully you'll be back. Just before we leave, so again, you can't use the product. There's too much demand. But where can people reach you if they want to go on the wait list, or if they can, if they want to reach out to you?
So they can, like, by the time this airs. That's right. We'll have launched. We're launching after recording. People can find the company at arkill.com, Arkill Data on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at jhleath, Leath. I'm always, if you want to follow someone who only talks about storage, I'm your guy. And you should be able to access the product by going to just disk.new and creating your own infinite shareable disk that's backed by S3.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I had a blast.
Thank you, Gabriel, for having me.
Awesome. And to our listeners, if you're still here, and you should, because it was so interesting, please consider subscribing to the channel. You should hit the notification bell. I publish every week, usually on Tuesdays. And you can also subscribe on your favorite podcast app to listen to us on the go, in your car, on your jog. Please leave us a 5-star review there if you can. That really helps. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next week.